Hang them is often the first response, or lock them up and throw away the key. In the wake of mindless, sickening crimes, there's always outrage, always support for the toughest punishment possible. But seldom do we have the opportunity to see what happens when those tough sentences are applied. Tonight, we do. We've been allowed a rare insight into the lives of two men convicted of unspeakable crimes and condemned to prison for life. Rare access to the minds of two murderers who at first glance might look like ordinary old men, but who, in reality, are truly wretched creatures. Between them, they've served more than 80 years in jail, and that's, most likely, where they'll die. Bill McDonald rarely leaves his cell, rarely speaks with anyone. In fact, he barely exists at all. For the last 37 years, this is how he's been repaying his debt to society. Do you have joy in your life?
I'm not exactly happy. No, not joy.
Is it a case of just waiting until you die?
Yes, that's right, yes. Just keeping myself occupied until I die.
In another prison, a similar story. Leonard Keith Lawson. In the last 46 years, or 16,500 days, he's been a free man for one stretch of 5 months, and that was in 1961. To kill time, he smoked more than 500,000 cigarettes.
Last Christmas, I sat down with my family at the Christmas table. My daughter was 6 years old, and now she's 53.
Yeah, it's not a great record, is it?
Certainly isn't.
Would you like to be forgiven?
I would like to be forgiven, but I wouldn't expect to be forgiven. They say that unless you can forgive yourself, you cannot expect others to forgive you. Well, I can't forgive myself and never will be able to. Never in a million years.
Len Lawson's crimes were horrific. They started back in 1954 when the promising photographer and cartoonist raped 2 women. For that, he was sentenced to death.
I was numb. I was virtually in shock, I suppose, for quite a while. It was wonderful to get the death sentence. You got a ration of butter, enough to spread about 4 slices of bread every day. That was the privilege you had for being on the death sentence. Yeah.
Lawson beat execution on appeal. He was a model prisoner, and after just 7 years was released. It was a fatal mistake. 5 months into his freedom, he'd reoffended, this time adding murder to his crimes. The newspapers of the day told the chilling story. Lawson raped and murdered a Sydney teenager. The next day, he shot and killed another girl during a siege at her school. This time, the judge ordered that Len Lawson never be released from jail.
You'd think that all the years that pass, it'd get easier, but I've found that the more years that pass, the harder it gets.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I can never understand what happened up here that made me do what I did, because it's against everything that I normally believe in.
Yet it was you.
It was me. Whatever happened to me mentally, I'm damned if I know, because I had a normal upbringing, I had a great family life. Just something happened up here and I went haywire. I just completely lost the plot.
Unlike Lawson, Bill McDonald's plot was lost at an early age. As a teenager, he says he was the victim of a vicious rape. But even before that, he claims his upbringing had scarred him.
I'll be quite frank with you, I had a love-hate relationship with my own mother. She was always having goes at me when I was timid and shy. She told me to shut up, and I haven't spoken much ever since.
Trying to escape his past, McDonald emigrated to Australia from England in the 1950s. Between 1960 and 1962, his occupation was serial killer. He murdered 5 men and terrorised Sydney in the process. There was seemingly no reason for the killings, but there was a gruesome pattern. The media's nickname for McDonald was appropriate: the mutilator.
Do you class yourself as a violent man?
No, it's the opposite. Timid and shy.
Which is extraordinary given that you murdered 5 people.
Well, sort of a monster.
And can you explain why you couldn't stop?
You try and stop, you can't. It's like a drug addict trying to give up drugs. You can't give up drugs.
So murdering people to you was like an addiction?
An addiction, yes. It had become an addiction. I said I could stop, but I couldn't.
How did you feel about being called the mutilator?
Shocked.
Did you like the name?
No.
Is prison still our best option in terms of punishment?
It's the only option. The only option for cases like this.
Criminologist Professor David Bile says with the average age of prisoners increasing, just what to do with people like Lawson and McDonald is becoming a worldwide problem.
What is appropriate punishment?
The punishment is loss of liberty. It's being in prison. People go to prison as a punishment, not for punishment. There's no secondary add-on punishment apart from not being able to get out.
I had everything. I had a wonderful wife. I had 3 beautiful, healthy kids that anybody could be proud of. And I lost them. My daughter I didn't see for 27 years. My eldest boy was killed when he was 22 in a car smash. I hadn't seen him since he was 5. I never knew him as a man. And my youngest son is now 49. The last time I saw him, he was sitting in his high chair having his breakfast. Unlike my daughter, he's never tried to contact me and never wanted to.
You can understand why he may not want to see you.
Of course I can understand. I don't blame him one bit.
Bill McDonald's life too has been one of isolation. In 37 years, I'm his 3rd visitor.
I like being alone, but it can't be healthy.
You really have no friends?
Never, no friends at all.
Is that your choice?
Yes.
Do you not trust people? Do you not like people?
I like people, but I don't trust them.
This is considered minimum. Medium security.
Yeah.
Okay. Grafton Jail is Len Lawson's home. For the last 11 years, he's been classified as a low-risk prisoner. But for the 3 decades before that, it was the concrete walls of maximum security.
There were 28 years. I never saw the stars, I never saw the moon, I never saw a sunset or a sunrise. I never walked on grass. You're walking on concrete all the time.
What do you miss most?
Oh, children, laughter of children. And of course I wouldn't be a man if I didn't say I missed female company. I mean, it's hard to maintain a normal outlook when you're living in those circumstances, you know.
Do you think you're normal?
I'd like to think I am. But, I wasn't 39 years ago, that's for sure.
And you have a key to your own room?
Yes, thank God. You have to. The place is full of thieves.
If redemption and rehabilitation are possible, then Len Lawson wants the world to know he's at least trying.
Right.
So this is home?
This is home. Yep. This has been my home for the last 11 years. Everything you see in here is all I've got to show for 73 years of living. my sole possessions.
His tiny cell doubles as an artist's studio. He donates his paintings to charities.
I determined many, many years ago that I'd at least try and put something back into society, and the only way I could do that is by working for charity, raising money for charities, and by doing that, I've at least been able to live with myself up to a point anyway.
He says he feels he's put something back into society through his artwork. Has he, do you think?
Yes, probably. But it's, what he's put back is trivial compared with what he's taken out.
During his time locked away, Bill McDonald has given nothing back to society.
Do you ever reflect on how life might have been if you had not committed these crimes?
Those 37 years may have been worse outside than inside if I hadn't committed the crime.
So jail has given you a better quality of life than perhaps you might have had?
Might have had outside, yes. I was very unstable outside. I wasn't able to keep a job. I was worried where the next meal would come from, you see.
But surely it would have been a better life if you hadn't murdered 5 people.
Yes, it'd been a better life, much better life, yes.
You had to think about that?
I don't have to think about it.
Now, some people might want to say it would have been easier if we'd hanged them at the time, but there are a lot of arguments which would suggest that that's not a good idea. For example, it costs much, much more money to proceed down the track of executions than it does to keep people in jail. I know with the last hanging in Australia, that of Ryan in Victoria in 1967, we could have kept him in jail for 1,000 years. That would have been less expensive than the costs of all the appeals that went on in that particular case.
Letting a man live, if he's got any conscience at all, is the worst punishment that you could hand him.
So that death sentence you were given would have been kinder?
I thought early in the piece, yes. There were times when I thought to myself, I wish to God they had strung me. But I'm glad now that I was allowed to live, because I've been able to redeem myself up to a point anyway.
It's a strange experience doing time with McDonald and Lawson. Both are so old and so frail, you'd swear they couldn't harm a fly. Both told me their days of evil were long gone, but I'm not sure how much trust society would put on their word.
And I'm shocked by what's going on in the world, believe you me.
You can't be.
Oh, God, I can't believe it.
So you're safer in here, Len?
I reckon I am. A hell of a lot safer.
You know how ridiculous this sounds coming from you.
Yeah, I suppose so.
You must see what I'm saying. I mean, you can't tell me how dreadful the world is now, given what you contributed to it.
Yes, yeah, I suppose it does sound rather ironic, but it's the way I feel. I can't help it.
It's likely Lawson and McDonald will die in their cells, and probably sooner rather than later.
Would you like to be let out?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the final disgrace, the final shame would be to die in jail.
So what is your future? How do you see the rest of your life?
Well, I don't expect it to be very long, much longer. I mean, I've got more things wrong with me than the Collins submarines.
Do you feel glad to be alive?
Yes. If I'd had that 37 years to live over again, and even though I'd have to spend 37 years in jail, I'd still do it over again. But you're going to be dead a long time, so I might as well give it a go.
Are you a religious man?
No, I am not religious.
So you're not worried about hell?
No, I believe that hell is here on earth. I've lived in hell for the last 39, for the last 46 years, and this is where hell is.